So there he is, the infamous author of the Phoenix hypothesis. I say infamous because recently I received a lot of criticism regarding my work and allegations that I stole it from Jason Brashear and his community. They just sent me a lot of messages and also made the accusations that they accused me of plagiarism. So since I didn't receive any message from Jason after I offered him to stand trial and be even guest on his show in a live session and answer to all these allegations, I didn't receive any response, so I am forced to make my own statements here, and which is okay because it gives me the opportunity to work on my inner fears to be in front of an anonymous camera. Anyhow, I want to make it slick, so I will make some edits. And of course, it's not about only the allegations, but also, you know, this video is supposed to be give people context and an overview of how I derived at my conclusions. When did I derive? And so this serves multiple purposes. I made myself a couple of papers here, just like Jason did, where I will address most of the accusations, and if there is some remains, I'm still open to be invited and questioned in front of a live audience if this is what he wishes. I want to start and tell the whole story chronologically. And chronologically means, so when did I first came to the idea that we are going through cyclic changes on planet Earth, and what kind of possible outcomes could be involved with that. It was pretty early. It was around in 2002. It was after my initial phase where I started to wake up from the mainstream understanding of reality with 9/11. So, and investigating 9/11 just led me down into the rabbit hole to many other topics. And my first approach was, of course, reading a lot of books, and one of those books or series of books was from what is commonly referred to as the German David Icke, that is Jan van Helsing. So he's touched on all those topics that also David Icke touched on. Just not the famous one, you know, with the raptors. But apart from that, he was really going down the rabbit hole, and one of his topics was European prophecies. So I switch monitor now. So here we see at the book. It says it was published in 2004, January 1st, but that is not true. Maybe that was the day when it was issued at Amazon or something, I don't know. It actually was written around 1999. And when I received it in 2002, it was starting off with, you know, giving a good overview about all these seers or people with the precognitive ability that saw the future of Europe and the world in general. It was, I mean, it scared the living hell out of me, this book, really. It did, and I tried actually to forget it, what I read in there. And of course, that was my first touch on these cycles and what is a pole shift and what does it mean. So it was already described in there, along with some spiritual interpretations. So that was my entry in the whole thing. But of course, I went to other topics down the line. And let's skip here. So the next author that had my attention was a guy who called himself Morpheus. So he wrote a couple of books about how to create reality, about simulation theory, basically. So he just touched on Matrix, which just came out, and said, look, there is some true background behind it. So he was already in, you know, the cage analogy and stuff like that, and he put it on with a lot of scientific material, and you know, all these anomalies like the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradoxon and stuff like that. He was really into it already, and also he wrote this book, Transformation of the Earth. So he was already in people like Sitchin and Velikovsky. So regarding that Earth goes through cyclic transformations, but he already started at this point focusing on the more spiritual aspect, so that whatever happens in the external is just a phenomena within the matrix, within the simulacrum. So so he was on all of that, and I read his books, and I was one of his biggest fans. And this heavy synchronicity, it came to the point that one day I met the guy, and he introduced himself to be the Morpheus. So, I mean, it was a shock for me, because I always had, Lawrence Fishburne's face in my head when I thought of Morpheus, but in the end it was like a large teddy bear, and his name was Dieter Breurs. So Dieter Breurs continued to publish books, and at this time, when we met in 2007, 2008, he was looking for a filmmaker, because prior to becoming an author, I was a filmmaker. That started already in 2005, and I already established myself as making documentaries with about unusual topics in a German context. And so that's why I came in contact, because he knew that I am very into his material, and that I would be the right person to make a documentary about his conclusions and ideas that were heavily discussed at this time, which was, of course, 2012. But he became like a teacher to me, and really explaining me metaphysical concepts in a scientific realm. And so we developed a script, we got a production company going to make a movie. And this movie was, it was like trying to get an overview of the different narratives that were surrounding 2012, and rather focused on the positive, transformational, spiritual transformational concepts that were floating in this realm. So yeah, so that is my exhibit number 1. You find it, okay, I just refreshed the page here. This is my website, mayamagic.com, and under this tab about the founder, you come, about, there's some work that I showcase where I tell a little bit about my background story. I was, doing photography and stuff, is also the infamous book. And later I was a chief editor with Secret TV. Secret TV was one of the biggest operations for alternative media in the German-speaking world. So that's where I was rubbing shoulders with people like Erich von Däniken and so on. So, but we come later to that. Down here somewhere, you scroll down, you find the featured film Revolution 2012. You can watch it here for free, and I will just make it big. So I think I don't have the audio. So here is my name, directed by Christian Köhlert. So you see, you can also, go to the official IMDb list. there is this movie with a ridiculous 6.4, but I will give you some cutouts from some movie, so you get right away that I was already heavily involved in cycles, transformational cycles, and simulation theory, because those things were already overlapping at the time in 2009. That was when we released it. But we started in 2007, 2008. Took me a year to create it. Later on in 2012, I combined with some other directors and their footage, and we made like an updated version of it, more generally, but also still on the same issue, which is still very well received and which is still sold, so you can buy it. I don't receive a dime from it because I actually don't know. I lost track of who's benefiting from the sale. Anyhow, so you will see that I was already in those topics. So let's give you a few cutouts.
Apocalyptic prophecies, conspiracy theories, and so forth. All of them aim at stirring up emotions, positive or negative. It's a cycle, the Mayan cycle. The Mayan calendar we're talking about doesn't end. That's all a fear game. It's the cycle that ends. I see no scientific imperative for, nor do I have a personal conviction that would support the prophecy angle. Although I have the highest regard for the work of the Mayan astronomers. This sort of necessary shift in consciousness doesn't just somehow come about on its own. It happens because we work to achieve it.
I am convinced that a change will come about in 2012, but the question is, when is 2012?
Don't panic yet, everyone. 2012.
That's the date that many doomsday prophets are claiming the world as we know it will end.
I'm convinced that we're heading towards a dramatic change on this planet. Everything we can observe indicates this. Climate change, overpopulation, food shortages, everything is undergoing an exponential development. And we know that an exponential function climbs even higher until the grade is so steep that the system self-destructs.
The paradigm shift that is already happening, first in physics. Biology is lagging behind, but it's already happening. It's a move towards a more organic view of nature, a more interconnected view of nature, where we see nature, the whole universe, the earth, and living organisms, not as machines.
Just stirring up panic? Statistics show a clear parallel at all times between population rates on Earth and sunspot activity. A further indication of the strong corollary between the reactions of our climate and all biological life on Earth to solar cycles. At the end of the last century, someone discovered a way of getting a scientific grasp on eternity. Physicist Burkhard Heim developed a theory that made it possible to observe the world holistically with all its material and non-material processes. Postulating a 12-dimensional worldview, he succeeded not just philosophically, but in a mathematically calculable model in uniting the two aspects of life that have been dogmatically separated for centuries, matter and spirit.
That model is actually directed more at people with a science background, who appreciate the method of accepting something as presented without tacking any additional speculations onto it. The tradition that you only believe what you can measure and confirm, so you can feel certain in your knowledge.
But how can we imagine a 12-dimensional world? Let's say that our life as we know it all takes place in a computer. We are all characters in a virtual 3-dimensional reality, a computer game, for example. Everything around us, colors, forms, objects, is 3-dimensional. All sequences and variations are programmed in a single time ray. As long as we don't interrupt the game, time passes in the linear fashion we are familiar with from our reality. Einstein called this virtual environment with 4 dimensions, including time, the space-time continuum. It is the world of our conscious experience. Burkhard Heim combined these dimensions in one space, or Raum in German, called R4. Remember, we're still talking about a computer here, so for anything at all to happen, we first need an operating system, the prerequisite for running any program. In Heim's model, the equivalent of the operating system would be what he calls structured space. X5 and X6 is what he calls the 2 dimensions that comprise structured space. Here, space and time already cease to play a role. Now, everyone would agree that without an operating system, the computer would be worthless. We wouldn't be able to play our game, in other words, to live our virtual world. For that, the computer needs additional data, the program itself, as well as numerous files, in which the visual appearance and the laws of our virtual world are pre-assigned and configured. All this information can be accessed at any time in the operating system's root directories. In Heim's model, these are the information spaces comprised of the dimensions X7 and X8. And finally, the computer itself has to be located somewhere too. It accounts for dimensions X9 to X12. In our model, this space is designation G4. It is the realm of the Creator, the omnipresent higher consciousness.
What we have here is basically the theoretical model for Rupert Sheldrake's findings. His practical work has ascertained that there is something called morphogenetic structures. He calls them morphic fields, although the term field isn't suitable here.
Burkhard Heim helps us to a certain extent in that he worked out his first theory on the basis of 6 dimensions. The higher dimensions, in other words, the upper 4, 12, 11, 10, and 9, cannot be grasped semantically, that is, in terms of their meaning. They're mathematical structures, higher symmetries, jokingly referred to as GAB, the German acronym for God only knows. We can't access them. On the other hand, meaning can be assigned through to the 6th and even the 7th and 8th dimensions. We have our 3 normal spatial dimensions. The 4th, which crosses over into the realm of the imagination, is the temporal dimension. Then we have 2 that lie in the realm of information, you could say.
So the basic idea behind Dieter's work was that we as a collective can change the path of history, or that we might have the ability to change and divert to other timelines, maybe as an individual, maybe as a collective. So the idea is to stay positive, work on yourself, be in the right heart to choose this path. So he was very keen and a strong believer that we can change collective outcome based on theories like the hundreds monkey effect or the Maharishi effect, which is true in a local sense, or if it comes to a certain location. But meanwhile, I have my doubts if this is really true when it comes to a whole collective, especially after 2020, but we come to that later on. But also because there were the allegations that the term like co-creation or co-creator is all derived from Jason Brashear. That is not true. You see, I wrote in 2016 that the date is not actually true, because in 2018 I remade my website, or I moved it from the CH to the COM domain. And so I had to remake everything, and so most articles, all the articles will have the date 2080. But actually it was in 2060 when I when I went on a journey from Canada to Mexico, living a camper life and becoming like a surfer and stuff like that. So, and on this way with my friend Jens, this is Jens, I wrote a couple of articles because we both were in this co-creation thing, and we made our little mantras and our little routines where we focused on where we tried to bend reality in a way that synchronicities and probability shift in a way that, how we like to create our individual reality and how it worked and what kind of techniques we used. It's all described. It's a mix-up of, telling my story of how our project and our journey went from Canada to Mexico, and but it also is heavily influenced, and the sub-notion is always about how to create reality, how you create your own reality bubble, and how you shift probabilities, and attract synchronicities. And if you really want to read a good synchronicity that happened to me, is this article, Synchronicity in Guerrero Negro. It was in Mexico. After that, I just let go and enjoyed the trip. But anyhow, so if you want to learn about co-creation and how I received it or perceived it back in 2016, that's the way to go. But that is actually a little fast forward. I want to come back to my time after I made the movie in 2009. So I became the chief editor of Secret TV, which was kind of pay TV. So we had I think around 100,000 subscribers, and not only subscribers, those people were paying money. And we had some really fancy production going on with lots of moderators, and we had the most interesting people there, and my job was basically to get all these interesting people. So and during this time I made many times contact with cataclysmic cycles, of course, although there was always this this notion, yes, that might be a possible timeline. But I want to stay positive, and say maybe there's some timeline diversion, whatever. So you could call me a unicorn for believing in stuff like that, but I'm still a little bit reluctant to really let that go. During this time being at Secret TV, I made contact with international representatives of the international truther scene, and I produced 2 DVDs for David Icke, for example. So any accusations of that I just came to the idea that there is some elite that has their own plans, and I came to this idea through Jason. I really deep dive with David Icke into this. Back in the days, he was still very invested into the tip of the power pyramid is represented by reptilians. But now if you listen to his current interview at London Real, he is also convinced that whatever controls this matrix, and of course he's also always been a very fond person in describing reality as a virtual construct, but he also thinks meanwhile that the tip of this power structure is an AI. So it's not, you know, maybe he also stole that from Archaix, I don't know. Anyhow, so this just a little side note. So back to my last big encounter with, or revelation concerning cataclysmic cycles was in 2010. 2010, Project Camelot released certain documents and this video about the Anglo-Saxon mission. And the Anglo-Saxon mission was an interview with an insider, a former admiral of the Navy intelligence, a British Navy intelligence, and a high Freemason in the city of London. So after his military career, he became like so Bill met this person and he recognized him. He had a really long, foot-long entry into Wikipedia. So this person was real, and his story was it actually described that there was a plan called the Anglo-Saxon mission, already discussed back in 2005. That was when the insider first got information about that. And the plan that was discussed to create certain pandemics, which would start in China, and later on creating geostrategic upheaval and conflicts all around the globe to initiate a World War III. Of course, that resonated with my entry into the prophecies. At the end, the story is, why are they doing that? And the insider said, yes, they are preparing for a cataclysmic event. So this is their preparation plan. So I already, you know, and it was the time I met Bill Ryan in Bavaria. We made an interview with Dr. Humble, and afterward, I mean, I speak in the book about it. But we talked about other issues, and he said, "Did you watch my Anglo-Saxon mission?" I said, "Yes." Wow, that is very heavy stuff. I can't really believe in that, but he convinced me this person was real, and he was honest from his feelings, and that he had, and since he released it, he felt like he poked into a wasp nest, or hornet's nest, whatever you want to take. I mean, both are aggressive. So, and the system really punished him and pushed him and forced him to retreat to South America, and he never published again. So Project Camelot and Bill Ryan were the biggest operation, international operation at this time in the alternative media. And this revelation, the Anglo-Saxon mission, forced them to retreat. At least forced Bill Ryan to retreat. So that gave it a lot of, let's say, the benefit of a doubt that this insider could be real. But I decided to stay positive and try to put that, you know, like my first encounter of the catastrophic, cataclysmic cycles into the back of my mind. So I did what is this bird who sticks his head into the sand? Yeah, I behaved like that, I have to admit. Anyhow, so continue with that. Afterwards, I decided to make something different in my life, leave alternative media for good, and do something where I can really help people. And I studied alternative medicine and creative homeopathy with focus on psychology. So and I did that for many years while traveling the world, and always coming back. And my teacher, she saw that I have really good potential and one of the best of her class. So, and she later made me the official ambassador for creative homeopathy in the English-speaking world. So there's this website, Creative Homeopathy. So I set it up all myself. I wrote a lot of articles. Most importantly is the 6-part organon, which explains how health and well-being and disease, how it can be understood in a multidimensional reality, in a, like a simulation. And what does it mean? How does it correlate? How, certain trauma create imprints, how those imprints manifest themselves as little code in our subconsciousness that inhibit us from creating our full potential. So I could help a lot of people, and I got helped a lot with that. So, getting rid of my imprints. Maybe not all, it's an ongoing process, because we are very blind towards our own blind spots, or let's say our Jungian shadow. I just want to mention that, so that I had a really, a very strange path in life. Anyhow, back here, just to make sure that you understand that I was really deeply involved. This is the high praise side of Project Köhlert. There's my name. There's also, you can find an old photo on the website. Yeah, this fellow here on the right side. This is the chief editor of German Nexus Magazine, one of my best friends, and at this time he's already deceased. But and he got me in contact with many interesting people. So he was also like a father figure in the alternative media. This is Jim Humble, very well known for, I don't know, I don't want to name it here because it's an off topic for YouTube. So this is Bill Ryan. And yeah, so just to prove that I'm legit when I say I was very close to Bill Ryan at this time. Let's continue on the list. Well, after 2010, 2011, I was, shifting between timelines, so to say. Sometimes I was back into this more cataclysmic thinking, and sometimes I was more like positive outcome manifestation. I shifted between that, and tried different things in my life, somehow find my way outside of the system as far as possible. So that was included a lot of traveling. So I was a traveler, and so I try to still stick my head into the sand when it comes to cataclysmic cycles, even though I already received a lot of information about it as a possibility. So, but it all changed with 2020. So initially when 2020 and the pandemic that came from China that had his reminiscences with the Anglo-Saxon mission right away. So still I was eager to find another explanation. So back and forth, but this understanding and this revelation that maybe this kind of cycle needs to be revisited once more, forced its way into my consciousness. So, and started researching intensively, and I was looking for someone who saw the same pattern. The only people that I found was suspicious observers and Vogt, what was his name? Douglas Vogt. So, but I not totally resonated with them, not fully, especially it didn't see matter from a more spiritual perspective or from a simulation hypothesis kind of angle. So still, you know, at a certain point I said, if no one sees the same pattern, especially not in Germany, I need to write an article about it. And I started first in English, and that was when my Cassandra hypothesis. Cassandra, of course, is the goddess who knew the future, but you know, can't change it, and it's ridiculed and not believed. So that was the idea behind the Cassandra hypothesis. And let's see, I published that according to my website, which you cannot trust because I might have made changes. The Cassandra hypothesis. So it says November. That can't be right. I probably had to rewrite it because if you look on GLP, when I published the article, it got published on the 30th. So the reason why the dates are not matching is probably sometimes, at least I had this problem a couple of times, that some article had some kind of errors, and the only way to solve them is rewrite the content into a new article. So that's why the dates do not match. Okay, just you know. But it was referenced here on GLP. So, and I published it on the 30th March. So I wrote, so let's look at this article. I opened it up again. And yeah, so the Cassandra hypothesis is this short article. I wrote it short because people hate walls of text, especially at GLP, where I first try to find people that see the same pattern, of course. And yeah, so after describing how I see that the system is facilitating or preparing a geological shift, I gave some evidence for that, but mostly in the form of videos like this one. You know, it's the you know, I was looking for videos that let's make it a little. Okay, so I referenced, for example, this short video, which was a good summary of, and it already has Hapgood in here and his earth-shifting crust. So I mean, I knew about that, and I didn't want to write in detail about it, so I just, you know, I just put up this video, and also the Bill Ryan video, and I referenced the cycle is over by suspicious observers, and I even went into the Planet X thing. So if you not only read the article, but you know, you watch the videos, it becomes much more extensive than just the article alone. So, and I got into remote viewing already and stuff like that, Hopi prophecies, and I also referenced a video here, which unfortunately it's not available anymore. And that is this video, the revelation of the pyramids. There's also a book which I have, but the documentary is even better because it's the visualization that the cycle is encoded into the pyramid. That convinced me. So you know, all these ideas already came. Were present at this time and much earlier. So I wrote that, and it only, I mean, I'm probably someone pushed me towards Archaix and Jason Brashear's work early on doing this article, but it becomes really evident that I was starting to take Jason's work very seriously. It became apparent, let's say, there it is. It's on the 26th of June. So here I write, I just want to pass on a great resource of inspiration I recently came across. So I was not lying. I came recently across, and you know how it is with Jason's work, and you stumble over one video and it's highly in detail about one specific subject or one specific source, and you try to, I mean, it's interesting, or you try to get out the information, what does it mean for the bigger context. So and you might follow a couple of videos, until I found a video where he was invited to some show and gave the overview, and you know, maybe at the beginning I pushed it away because it didn't correspond with the idea that Planet X or Nemesis X object and the pole shift or the Phoenix, that are two separate things. I don't know the truth about that. I take both assumptions. Anyhow, so, but here we go. At the 26th, that was my first contact where I admit, yes, Jason Bashir work is interesting because it corresponds with my own work, and he's the first one to implement simulation theory in it, which is also mine, and I admire that someone has, let's say, the balls to combine those things, and because most people are overwhelmed. If you come with catastrophic cycles, is way over the head, and if you combine it with simulation theory, it becomes even, you know, much more elite in thinking. So so that was the first time. But what was happening at this time? So I released the article in January, February, March. So, and soon after that, I offered this article to Nexus Magazine. I said, it's a good friend of mine, the guy who's became the one responsible after my my good friend and former chief editor of German Nexus Magazine died. So, and he said, yes, hurry up, you can be in the 102 issue, which would be released in August, June, July, August, right? So I had to finish my script around the time, it's mid-June, end June, I don't know anymore. So there was like, first I had to submit the script, and they were checking it, and then I received it back. So and then finally, I guess around this time, end of July, I already received like the finished layout for the 14 pages which would occur in the magazine. So now there comes the point of where Jason thinks there is some deception from my side. Now the point was, it was at this point where I admit that I am already into his material. It was a time where the article was already written, and they already fixed it into a layout. So this is the, oh well, maybe I changed the camera again. So this is the Nexus Magazine. What is it? Oh, this side. So this is the Nexus Magazine, and this is the article. So, in German. So, and at this point where I started to write it, it was still named Cassandra hypothesis, indeed. And when I received the final layout, it was still called the Cassandra hypothesis. But that was the point, as it is prevalent here in this GLP thread, that I already got into Archaix. I said, wow, so much new information, and I actually wanted to edit or put them also into the article, at least, you know, little summary of, you know, that he's just one more that has the same ideas and just a little bit different touch, and that he has this 138 year cycle and stuff like that. I wanted to put it in, but it was already fixed. I couldn't change the article anymore. I could only edit certain, if there was a mistake, maybe a word or something, but I couldn't, you know, spoil all their effort of editing. It's you know, a small operation, Nexus Magazine in Germany. But what I could do was, I told him about it. I told him about Jason at this time, and said, look, there's another guy, and he says exactly the things that I do, and he even dares to include simulation theory into it. And so he said, so what we can do is, I'm still looking for material. I'm still looking for material which is a section, it's called Wired. So, and this is all things that he finds in the internet which are interesting. So it's, you know, just 4 little things that he likes to bring to the attention of his readers. And the first one is Archaix, because I told him. So so that is all I could do, because that is a part he didn't finish at this point. I couldn't put Archaix in my article, but I at least could make him appear into this Wired page, because it was still blank. So, and when the chief editor, Daniel, got, you know, I told him the whole concept and that the cycles are associated with the Phoenix, and he immediately reacted to that and said, wow, Phoenix, that makes sense, also from the transpersonal understanding that, you know, in psychology, you know, when dreams of a phoenix, it's birth, rebirth and stuff like that. That fits much better than your Cassandra, because hardly anybody knows who Cassandra was. But a phoenix, the birth, rebirth thing and cycles, and that's a good one. Let's call, you know, we can make changes to the title. That is all I can offer. I took that. So the only thing I couldn't put Archaix in the article, but I could change the title. So that's when Cassandra became the Phoenix hypothesis. So just to make that clear. So I wanted, you know, when the magazine came out, I was already into Archaix, but I had no control over the article to advance it any further. But what I did was that when that was much later, it was according to my website, if we can believe that, it was October 10th, I started to translate. So the magazine was already out there, it was already printed, there was already a new issue coming out. So so I translated this article and into English, and all the because it would have been much too big. Oh, wait, I have to change the camera. So here it is. So the Phoenix hypothesis. So as it appeared in the Nexus magazine. But when at least what I did was, when I made the English translation, I felt what I always wanted to do in the first place and add. So I split off the whole article of 14 pages into various articles, and I think here, how realistic is a pole shift? So at least the least thing that I could do is add him. There is a section which is also, where do I find it? Research guidance and suggestions. And look and behold, I put Archaix here. So I added him already in the translation. Although this part is not, so in the German argumentation, there it is. This is the equivalent, the 3 points here. As you can see on the screen, there are 4 points. I added him because I had all the freedom to do so with the article, even though it was a derivation from the original. So I wanted to actually put him here in the research section where you can go if you want to go deeper into the psycho aspects. So at least I did it with the digital version and the English translated versions. So that's all I could do at this point, but otherwise the article in its wholeness, all of it, all the information derived on my own device, so from my own research, and it wasn't inspired at all by Archaix, because I wrote the article based on my Cassandra hypothesis, and it was released, or it was issued to the magazine to be processed way before I really got my first clue what was JSON all about. So I hope that is clear where the deception might come from and why maybe the dates didn't do things right, but it should be clear that the Cassandra hypothesis, the official date on my website can't be right if I already published this article on what was it? I was still in Germany at this time, obviously. So on the 30th of January, February, March. Okay, so I hope we get that right, because I think some of these allegations derive from conflicts and dates and stuff like that. So now I go on to the German website. So it's, and I also have for the German book, and so there is a video. So I will open that. So that video is, let's put it on YouTube. You see, it's not listed anymore because the channel had strike issues, and they felt like my, even though it made a really good run, they felt like they better retreat it. And this was a lecture I held at a famous Regentreff meeting in Germany. And what I presented there was basically my article. But once again, at a section where I recommend to people. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So again, like on my website, I recommend Jason Bashir, Archaix, and his chronological dating of the Phoenix phenomena. I recommend that. So I gave people the opportunity. Look, there's suspicious observers. There's this. You can, just believe the books of Hapgood, or you really want to go down the rabbit hole, and you speak English. Not everybody does that in Germany. Be a surprise. You can go down the Archaix path. So I leave that open because I don't know for sure. I just make an assumption. I make a hypothesis. A hypothesis is not this is the case, but rather this could be the case. It's like an idea that needs the approval. That's a hypothesis in general. So this lecture in Germany, that really kicked it off. And you see the rainbow in the background, the Regentreff rainbow. It's a famous rainbow which has always been there. And just look at it. The same rainbow is here. And this is a lecture of Paula Laviolette. And I saw that. I was present when he held his lecture about his superwave theory. So also the allegation that I just mentioned, Paula Laviolette because Archaix was into him. It's not true. That was, I don't know, it's a long time ago. It must be around 2009, maybe 2010 when I was present at this lecture. And why do I was present? Because at the same time, you see the same rainbow again, my dude, Dieter Breurs, presenting, presenting his ideas about cataclysmic cycles and stuff like that. So so you see that is you know, the Regentreff in Germany is like the mecca for all kinds of conspiracy theories and alternative ideas, and I was really honored to be invited based on the article I wrote for Nexus Magazine, and that kicked it off, because right after that the publisher Osiris Verlag, it's a publishing house. Verlag means publishing house. So, and this Osiris Verlag, they came to me and asked, look, this is a really interesting material. It's unique to Germany. Even though I made clear that, you know, the topics I'm talking about, I didn't invent them. They are already very present inside the international context. And I just bring it to the attention of the Germans, and yeah, so that's where I started off. And I said, well, I don't know if I have the time to write, but soon after, you know, I just started typing on my computer, and it just flowed through me. I mean, that's, you know, like divine inspiration. Call it whatever you want. Some people call it an AI wrote it. Maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe Archaix was channeling its information through me, and maybe that's where all the fuss is all about. I don't know. All I know is, yes, I started to write my first book. And of course, in this book, I wanted to go much deeper into Archaix, and actually, the end I didn't do. I just, you know, said, okay, this guy, he is legit, and he's really deep into that, and he's so deep that I don't even dare to touch his material or try to argue it. But please, if you want to go really deep down the rabbit hole, please, he is your man. That's what I basically did in the book. Everything else, you know, already came to me in advance before I got in contact with his material. So I will go into some other claims now that have been made, or questions that have been raised. I hope I got a big chunk of it. By the way, I will go later into that. So the first question is, who wrote this foreword, this very positive foreword of mine? So Mike Horner is the name, and people try to figure out who is Mike Horner. Mike Horner is a client of mine. He is a British gentleman. He's 84 years old. He has an impressive library. He wrote probably, you know, he has at least 2,000 books in his library, and he said he, you know, read at least 3,000. So he was someone who's well into scientific work, and we both were always, you know, when we were meeting up, we were always discussing simulation theory, on multidimensional understanding of reality. So that was our topic. So when I told him that I wrote a book, he was, you know, keen to read it. He was the first native speaker, so to say, to raise his hands and said, yes, I'm totally interested in what you produce. So, and once he read it, he was stoked, because he never got in contact with all the ideas that I presented. So he wrote a very positive foreword, and I almost felt ashamed when he gave me the first draft, and calling me like a humble person, and blah 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 blah, and intellectual whatever. So, but in the end, I said, you know, he himself admitted, look, don't blush. But I'm a fanboy. That's what he said to me. Then he sent it to me and said, okay, whatever. I put it in like that. So yes, it's a little bit over the top. I admit it, the foreword. But he's a nice guy, 84 years old, loves cats, has a wife who just broke her leg. Oh yeah, ankle actually. But it's bad. Anyhow, so next question, who is Robert Stein? So so it's not easy to make. So I just put in Robert Stein, and what I also add is Regentreff. So you see the rainbow again. Oh well, here we go. So, oh well, let's see. Oh yeah, there he is, in front of the same scenery as I. So, and Robert Stein is my friend. We have been colleagues since the when I was chief editor. He was one of my. I asked him to become one of the moderators and make interviews, and yeah, we first met at a Regentreff. Indeed, it was like back in 2005 or something, the first time, and he already held lectures back then about topics like Illuminati and whatever. He had really interesting 9/11 video he made, or lecture he made, that became really famous, and so he's really well known within the German truther scene, and he's a good friend of mine, and he helped me a lot. He even was mentoring me on how I make my first lecture and stuff like that. Without his help, I wouldn't even have dared to step in front of all these people and tell about my understanding of what is happening in the world and the system and the cataclysmic cycles. So he pushed me. So that's why he deserved to be in the book. Yes, he wrote a few articles, but neither Mike Horner nor Robert Stein helped me writing my book, nor did an AI. I didn't use any ChatGTP or whatever. Okay, next questions. What is all this cover about? So, be surprised or not, the whole book, I did it, including the graphics and so forth. So, and so of course, this very discussed book here. No, wait, I put it up big. So this much discussed composition that I made. Of course, it is copied a little bit, or the original idea is from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, the Beatles album, where you also have a lot of individuals, and all the individuals here are the ones that in one way or another are part of the book. And you know, so people get easily pissed because there are the disinfo agents, as they say, there are those bad politicians, and even Klaus Schwab, who is, you know, for many people the incarnation of evil. I understand that, and that some people might be, you know, not very keen to be shown in a group. But from my perspective, I believe in singularity. So that everything which we see on a global stage, on a four-dimensional stage, actually derives from one singularity, from one source. So we are all the same, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In essence, you know, we are just actors on a stage, and some actors are the villains, you know, and you need the villain to become the hero, to evolve. Because without a challenge, there is no evolution. So I'm deeply into that. So I don't judge about anybody. You know, I might have my opinion and say, okay, what he is doing is not right, and you know, and he's a really cruel or maybe egoistic person. Yes, but I don't judge him and push him away, and condemn him or her. No, that's not the way I operate. I see singularity in everything. So, and if I reject something on the stage, that means I reject something in my subconsciousness, my own Jungian shadow, if you will, because we are good and bad also inside. You know, we have both polarities. The question is whether our higher self decides to go which path in every decision we make every time. So I hope that explains why I don't differentiate and just put the good guys. But who is the good guy? You know, how do you want to determine that? I mean, it's always a personal evaluation that you make. So please, it was just everybody who had an impact in the book, in a good or a bad way, became part of this this art piece that I made myself. And yeah, I mean, I didn't think anything about it. I just, you know, people looking to the right side came on the left, and vice versa. So it somehow makes sense. And I try to put all the heads so there's no big gaps and stuff like that. I had at least no conscious, you know, second thoughts why and where I put Jason, and that his shadow alliance with the pyramid it doesn't have a deeper reasoning. It is just as I made it, maybe my subconscious, my AI controlled overlord, or my overlord that, you know, that works through me, if some people believe in that, maybe made me do it like this. But I don't know what you even want to interpret it with that. What is the interpretation? What does it mean? So anyhow, it was, anything I made with that was totally subconsciously, if you will. It's just, you know, it's supposed to look good. All right. So anything else, also the cover, the layout, everything I did myself. There was no help. The help came maybe from Mike Horner, because he was the first one who read through it, and he marked a few spots where he said, look, that sounds like English, you know, make it up a little bit. And my girlfriend, who is not even a native speaker, she is Slovakian, so, but she still speaks very well English, and she said, look, this sentence is too long, you have to cut it, and blah blah blah. And she made many other suggestions. So apart from that, everything in the book, the layout, the design, everything is made by me, right? Okay, let's continue about so that was what the cover is all about. So let's go to the simulacrum part. So there's a movie, let's switch there. There is a movie which is famous in German. Some people call it the German Matrix movie. It's called Welt am Draht. So now it's actually not a movie. I mean, you could consider it a movie. It is actually a short series. It came out in 1973, based on a book called Simulacron 3 by Daniel F. Galloy. I don't know. This term simulacrum was heavily used in that movie. So everybody who was you know, into simulation theory in Germany, you know, he always stumbled across Welt am Draht. So here it is, simulacrum, right? So, and it's based on a book which has the same name. So claiming that I took the term simulacrum from Jason is just not that is not right. No, I had that term down way before he made it public on his channel, please. So so let's come to the point where I have to admit some things. Okay, so here we go. So what is right about the allegations? So it is true, after I held my lecture, and I took my time to dive into Archaix, and I guess I must have at least watched 30 plus hours of his presentations. You know, not everything stick to me, but of course certain expressions that he uses, they became part of my vocabulary. I couldn't even do it, you know, he's repeating it, and I'm just like a monkey like everybody else, and I'm pretty sure that many people of his audience are also, you know, the same if they talk with their friends about those issues or this context. They will also use words like if something is true, it will show from multiple different vantage points, because it's a fundamental truth, and you can have many derivations from that. And yes, it became also part of my vocabulary, and I know that I most probably picked it up from Jason. So, and if I use that in the book, yes, guilty. I'm guilty. So, but you cannot put a copyright on that. I mean, and I won't put it in quotes all the time. No. And horse and buggy through hadron colliders, I misquoted that by saying quantum computers. Probably I also got it from Jason. Very much. I'm pretty sure. So these kinds of allegations are correct. Yes, there are elements of his vocabulary or his certain phrases that he uses that infiltrated also my mind. I'm sorry, but that doesn't justify calling me a fraud or someone who's just copying from. Well, I had to make a little break here because my girlfriend came. Anyhow, so let's continue about the things that I like to admit. Okay, so yes, there are certain sentences that that occupied or infiltrated my own vocabulary, and yeah. That is true. So that might give you the impression that I copied everything, but it's not true. So also I have to admit that, of course, I strolled through Jason's book propositions, right? So there's a handful of books that I got myself. Among those is the one of Andrew Thomas, which I referenced, because I felt it really refreshing to know where I could have used, this as a source, other people like Erich von Däniken or Hedger Childress, who derived at the same conclusions. But I found it really refreshing that Andrew Thomas wasn't too much into trying to make up claims or models how these ancient cultures had already such advanced knowledge. So I referenced it. I didn't really look through all of the book, but I saw his presentation indeed on this book, and I was bought 20 minutes in, and I got this book. Yeah. Also, Hans Bellamy is someone I looked into, and at one point regarding the many, Wikipedia has a lot already. You just look at Wikipedia and you find this great flood myths already very well selected. But Hans Bellamy was probably one of the first before Wikipedia came along. So I referenced him instead of Wikipedia. So, and I didn't say I came to Hans Bellamy because of Jason Bashir. I don't know if that really is necessary, since I got so many books in my library that came from all kinds of sources, and from suspicious observers, and even Douglas Vogt suggested certain papers and material that found its way in, and I don't see any reason to write beneath every source who initially pointed me to that. That's not the point of scientific work. So I appreciate the suggestions, and it hopefully helps people that read the book to get also the suggestions. So I just pass it on. But claiming some kind of ill intent behind that is, from my point of view, ridiculous. So, and other, also Evolution Cruncher is those three books. Definitely, I got inspired, but I don't see like the big harm here. I'm just make suggestions to the reader, so, and gives maybe a little bit more credibility to the general idea. So, one further allegation is why didn't I put too much significance on the 138 cycle. And I want to combine it with another question: what is the purpose? What was the purpose of my book? And so the purpose of my book is actually because I saw in the German alternative scene and also in the international scene, especially when it comes to GLP, this forum, I saw too many people just fighting with different tentacles of the same kraken, and not seeing that the kraken is preparing the territory for something bigger to happen on the stage. So that, you know, my first intent was to make people aware, look beyond the puppets and look beyond the spectacle that they show. So that was my intent. What length the cycle has no practical value for me as a human being. I mean, I suggest that, you know, you can go down different paths and come to different cycle conclusions. You can read Hapgood's book, and I think he has something like 5,000 or 4,000 year cycle. I don't know, maybe he's right, maybe not. Maybe Jason is totally on point with that. But it has, you know, 12,000 years or 138 years has no practical value for me as a human being right here and right now. But still, though, I understand why he wants to be very precise on that, because as far as I understood, he's willing to make all, you know, get all the scientific material into big books and metal cases that survive a cataclysm, and so the next generation or the next people that emerge from the aftermath will have a chance to recognize and see the cycles ahead. So I get that, and I'm happy that someone takes on this very important work, and the whole community is obviously involved in that, and I see their reasoning why they want to be precise, why they don't want to be cross-contaminated, as he always says. I get that. For me and my ambition with the book, the cycle was, you know, it is important that it is in the near future, that we have to mentally, spiritually, and physically prepare for that, and not get distracted any further by the puppet show that we see on television. That is my intent, you know, that people wake up who are willing to wake up, because not everybody is, and to approach people. You don't, you know, you don't come with too much details and confusing concepts. You just say, look, this is the common ground they all circulate around, and the important point is it's soon. How soon? You know, some suggest 40, 47, two different. Even that doesn't matter to me. You know, if 40 is the day, and if by any chance I survive that, knowing that 7 years later I get the next ass kicking, I mean, okay, it might be significant at that point, but maybe it won't, because I don't survive the first wave of catastrophes. So I see the reasoning, but that was not my ambition. And my ambition was, look, I don't know for sure, but there are some people that claim they know for sure. And you can go down the suspicious observer path, or you can be, you know, someone who's following Douglas Vogt, or you can become an Archaix follower. So up to you. You know, I just tell you where is the intersections, where are the intersections, where are all these concepts meet, and where do they meet is that, you know, that we are bound to have something special happening here. So that was my primary intent, and maybe that's why I didn't go into the 138, which was, you know, not well received by Jason. But on one hand, he claims I copied everything, and then I left that thing out. Why did I left it out? Because it opens up a can of worms that I also have to answer, and if I start answering, then I'm fully into his work. And at latest at this point, you had a good reason. you had a good reason to say that I'm just copying here from another person's work. But everything I put in the book, again, except for the few sentences I use and the book suggestions, I was inspired by Jason. Everything I derived at my own device. So I hope you believe that, but I think I presented enough evidence that I'm not just some newcomer that first got stoked by Jason and then they said, okay, I totally drive in his path or his wake. So, having said that, let's come to the next. Jason was very upset that I didn't appreciate him too much. Yeah, if you believe that 90% of the book is coming from you, then yes, you could be upset about that. But that is just not true, right? So, and I think compared to all the others that inspired me, or that I felt are credible sources to mention in the whole spectrum, you got the most attention, and you should be just happy with that. So next thing, the book is fancy cover and hardcover. So there must be a big organization behind me, probably the CIA or something. No, this is KDP, Amazon. You just write it, send them your PDF, and then you can decide you want a hard copy or a soft copy, paperback. So and you don't pay extra. You pay nothing at all. The consumer pays. Okay, so for whether they want to have the one or the other. So allegations that there is some kind of money business behind that. No, I actually gave the book away for free on GLP already, I think 10 days ago. So I published it all for free. People can read it for free, and if they want to support me, they can buy a book. Yeah, so there is no also allegations of big money behind it is wrong, and also making big money, the intention of making big money. Yes, of course, I would also appreciate if I can fully concentrate on writing, because my books make enough money for that. Until now, that is unfortunately not the case. So I have to do other work, which I also enjoy. Okay, so that is fine. And you don't need to support me, and no one needs to. But I feel at this time that we have, it is important to make people aware who want to be aware. So, having said that, hijacking the Phoenix narrative, another allegation. No, that is not my intent, not at all. I keep open. I'm open about everything. So I'm not totally sold on all your concept, but I'm not sold to anyone else's concept neither. So I stay open. I'm still open that there might be a timeline shift, and according to the hidden hand material, that there will be a threefold split in timelines for the good, the bad, and the lukewarm. Even I take that in consideration as a possible scenario, and so I'm just telling people in my book, in my publication, and also in my interaction with my community here in Germany. I tell them, don't trust me and don't trust anyone else that I cite. Make up your own mind, feel in your heart, in your intuition, and what does it tell you, and find your own truth. So I'm teaching self-responsibility instead of blind leadership, or just blind following. So having said that, and I hope that approach is prevalent in my work. Otherwise, no, it is prevalent in my work. I mean, if you really read carefully through it, especially at the end, I make it very clear that I might be wrong, my sources might be wrong. Make up your own scientific investigation and feel who you can follow as an opinion leader. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of followership, and I'm definitely not want to become a chapter of Archaix. I'm my own authority, and so should everybody else be. So this guy here is a pretty famous commentator in Germany. His name is Horst Lüning, and he published a couple of months ago this book here. It's called, I mean, you can see it on the other screen. It's called Catastrophic Cycles. So, and he was surprised himself that just a few months later my book emerged. And his first initial reaction was also, oh, this guy must have been, when he heard about the content, he thought that I was copying from it, but he soon realized that this was impossible. So he made a book review on it. First, he started off that how he got to the catastrophic cycles, and funny enough, he didn't even use one source that I used in my book. He didn't even use one of Suspicious Observers, or as far as I could see, and certainly not one of your sources. Still, he derived at the same conclusions. And call it synchronicity or whatever. So anyhow, so he felt really pleased that he found my book, which just continued on where he started off, or where he ended his book. So saying that there are these cycles, and what does it mean for the collective? He wasn't even going into that. So, but my book did. So so he made a very positive book review, and saying, wow, that's. Indeed, as you would say, if something is fundamentally true, it can be seen from multiple different vantage points. Yeah, how do we continue? I don't know. I don't even know if Jason is watching this video, and might be able to change his mind on all these allegations he started off with. Anyhow, I'm I'm not agitated or something. Things happen, and everybody deserves a second chance. So do I, and so is he. And if we can have a virtual beer meeting, although I don't drink beer as a German, which is strange, I know, we can have that, and we can talk about whatever. And we can even work together at certain things. I'm open for everything, and so if there are still certain unclarity about certain details, I'm willing to answer. All right. So I hope I got the great bulk of misunderstandings here covered, and anyhow. That's all I have to say, I guess. And yeah, I mean, this is a very important time that we're living in, and I think, especially on this topic, we should work together and see the commonalities instead of the differences. And I hope we can fix that. Otherwise, I wish you all the best, and for your work. So, goodbye.